I sure can. The New Jersey Open Public Meetings Law was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice of and to attend the meetings of public bodies at which any business affecting their interest is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the provisions of this act, the Sparta Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be advertised by having... What happened? That was just my practice run.
Good job.
You did well.
Oh, it's early. It's only...
That's wrong. Yeah.
There you go.
Okay. Call to order. Meeting announcement, please.
The New Jersey Open Public Meetings Law was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice of and to attend the meetings of the public bodies at which any business affecting their interests is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the provisions of this act, the Sparta Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be advertised by having the date, time, and place thereof posted at the Sparta Board of Education office, 18 Mohawk Avenue, as designated by the Board of Education for posting of such notice in a public place. Written notice was emailed on June 2nd, 2023 to the New Jersey Herald, the Star Ledger, tapintosparta.net, and the Township Clerk specifying the date, time, and the place of this meeting.
Okay, thank you. We get a roll call, Ann, please.
Ms. Collier? Ms. Keeling?
Here.
Mr. Knapp?
Here.
Ms. McMichael?
Here.
Mr. Koleshi?
Here.
Ms. Pitzer? Ms. Sealander? Dr. Serrano? Mr. Morris?
Here. You all rise for the pledge of allegiance.
United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, at this time, we're going to convene into closed session. We shouldn't be any more than an hour. While in closed session, we'll be hearing a HIB appeal, attorney-client privilege, and personnel matters. Thank you.
Need a motion.
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 Thanks, Walter, second. Christina, thanks. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Is everyone here? Yeah. Welcome. Okay, we're going to reopen the meeting. And can we get a roll call?
Ms. Collier.
Here.
Ms. Keeling.
Here.
Mr. Knapp.
Here.
Ms. McMichael.
Here.
Mr. Paleschi.
Here.
Ms. Pitzer.
Here.
Ms. Seelander. Dr. Serrano. Mr. Morris.
Here. Okay. Moving on. Nobody's station. Okay. Superintendent's report.
Student.
Oh, yes. Chat.
I apologize.
I apologize. Sorry.
So on our student council front, we recently had our meeting, which is more or less the conclusion of our student council year. We had a small little party and had all the classes together, and it was a very nice conclusion. Ms. Delucia had a lot of nice things to say. Additionally, we're excited for the end of the school year. I took my last final as a senior. I'm done. Almost everyone is done. We're all happy and excited, and I know that Monday we're having some food trucks come in, and it's going to be a nice thing for students to get yearbook signings and see teachers. So I think we have a really great end of the school year plan for us, and I've been very happy with the school year so far. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I get a motion for approval of the minutes.
Motion.
Thank you. Second.
Second.
Thank you, Christina. And roll call.
Ms. Collier.
Yes.
Ms. Keeling.
Yes.
Mr. Knapp.
Yes.
Ms. McMichael.
Yes.
Mr. Paleschi.
I'm abstaining because I was not able to make last month's meeting.
Ms. Pitzer.
Yes.
Mr. Morris.
Yes. Okay, now, superintendent.
Yes, thank you. It's a little shorter this time because there was a short period of time between board meetings, but it is heavy on student recognition. But before I get to the student recognition, I would like to recognize the new SEA leadership. I'd like to congratulate Ms. Angela DeLucia for stepping into the role of president of the SEA. We've been working with Ms. DeLucia as part of the SEA leadership for years and look forward to continuing our collaborative and open professional relationship. I would also like to welcome Mr. Andrew Bayless, who will be stepping into the role of vice president of the SEA. I've worked with Mr. Bayless on various union matters over the past 2 years and look forward to continuing to work with him as well. And lastly, I would like to recognize Ms. Sue Soy, who is stepping down from her leadership role with the SEA after many years. I'd like to thank Ms. Soy for her collaboration and open communication since I stepped into the role of superintendent. Also, going back into May, recognizing the senior class top 10 that was recognized at a nice annual event, nice annual dinner, the senior class top 10. Those were Rachel Berghan, Jonathan Burns, Samantha DeSanti, Elizabeth Enriquez, Alicia Gaines, Catherine Gaines, Ryan McKellen, Ariana Paleo, Isabella Sportelli, and Claire Zhu. Congratulations to them once again. And the spring athletic season has wrapped up, so I will go through the spring athletic achievements as well. For boys golf, Dylan Barry and Ian Belush were first team golf, and Ryan Greisuk was honorable mention. Boys lacrosse, Joe Buono, Greg Peters, Ryan Rossi were first team, Blake Rulis was second team, and Troy Cristiano was honorable mention. Girls lacrosse, Ain Byrne and Uma Kowalski were first team. Leah Moore, Shay Sina, and Sophia Paulercio were second team. Girls golf had a successful season. Caroline Mastandria was first team, Aaron Takich was second team, and Eve Hughes was honorable mention. Boys baseball, first team Liam Gallagher, Evan Solis, and Josh Brancy. Second team Tanner Ledinger, Braden Shappert, and Jake Hand. An honorable mention was Tyler Cox. Softball had a very successful season. First team Mason Munier, Riley Munier and Grace Conrad. Second team, Gabrielle Heim and Alexa Berry, and honorable mention was Carly List. Girls track, first team was Isabella Fratura, who actually competed in the Meet of Champions today and placed sixth in the state in javelin. Second team was Ella Rosinski and Ashley Crane, and honorable mention was Catherine Gaines. Boys track, second team, Remsen Jarrell, Elliot Trento, Hunter Peterson, Tim Mokarin, and Bradley Maines, and honorable mention was Anthony Lane. And Jack boys volleyball, first team was Finn Mell, and boys tennis, last but not least, Thomas Shotland earned second team honors. And thank you to Mr. Stoner, who always gets me the athletic updates. As we wind down the school year for 22-23, I want to thank the community, students, staff, and administration for a great year. In our first full year being COVID restriction-free, our students and staff accomplished many great achievements and have established a path to future success. As we move forward into next school year, I wish everyone a great summer. And before I turn it over to Mrs. Rossi for some curriculum instruction things, before I do that, I want to highlight something that I know she will discuss further. And on this evening's agenda, you can see the first reading of revisions to policy and regulations 5430, which pertains to grade point average. These revisions come after much research and in collaboration with our students who have been asking for these revisions to take place for over a year now. I want to be clear that grade point average will remain as it always has. The revisions effectively remove class rank from student transcripts. However, class rank will still be made accessible for the colleges and military branches that still require that information for their applications. And I'll turn it over to Ms. Rossi for a little more information on that and some other curriculum matters.
Great, thank you. Good evening, everyone. So in talking about the rank policy revisions, first I want to say that policy is the bedrock of a school system, and it's something that our district professionals take very seriously. It drives our operation and our practice. Recommendations for policy change requires thorough consideration and a solid foundation. When making decisions about this kind of educational reform, it's critical to consider the implications and effects of our actions. Class rank has been a topic of discussion for some time now. College admission practices continue to evolve, more information continues to be shared, and most importantly, our students continue to advocate for their needs as a learning community. In compiling data and research on the usage of class rank, we found that colleges are not utilizing this metric in the same way they have in the past. Something that once held value now runs the risk of actually negatively impacting a student's chance to get into college. Class rank is an arbitrary metric and varies from school system to school system. In high-performing school districts, actually, it is often not an accurate representation of a student's academic achievement. In a review of 20 highly ranked top-performing school districts in the state of New Jersey, including those from our district factor group and beyond, we are only one of 2 districts left implementing such a dated practice. We feel strongly that class rank can no longer be utilized as a driving measure within our school district. We believe in the importance of maintaining relevant and responsible practices while also preserving community tradition. It is for this reason that even though we will be moving away from class rank, we will continue to celebrate and honor the top 10 through use of their weighted GPA, which has always been how we identify the top 10. The acknowledgement and celebration of our academically prestigious students will not be compromised due to our desire to remain current and competitive. Our goal would be to continue to release class rank, our goal would be to discontinue the release of class rank, beginning with those students who have not received this information yet. This population includes our current sophomores and classes below them. Next year would be considered a transition year for current juniors who will have the option of whether or not they want their class rank to remain on their transcripts. We believe this would be a fair and systematic approach for such changes. While we have spent a great deal of time being thorough, diligent, and responsible about refining district practices, including the topics of class rank, it is only because of our collective, unwavering commitment and attention to serving students that such progress continues to be made. As the year comes to an end, and surely more work lies ahead, I think it's important to recognize and celebrate our educators and administrators for remaining steadfast and focused on this goal. I would like to also mention some noteworthy highlights and accomplishments that this collaborative effort has resulted in this school year. We first want to thank the SEF for their generous donations and continued support in creating innovative learning experiences in the classroom. There were several grants that were funded this year, and they continue to be a partner with us. This year is the first year we have started the implementation of the IRB process, which allows for safe and responsible research practices, giving students a college-level experience right inside the walls of our high school. We've expanded programming and supports, including response to intervention, multi-tiered supports at the high school. We've implemented computer science throughout grades K through 5. We've expanded our offerings on concurrent enrollment courses. We've increased acceleration opportunities, and we've partnered with many community-based and beyond organizations to help grow our capacity as a school district. These include William Patterson University in support with our pre-K program, our growing pre-K program. We worked with Mathnasium, which partnered with us for a STEAM night. We continue to work with the Coalition of Inclusive Education to support our practices related to our neurodiverse population. We implemented the National Writing Project. We partnered with the Power of Water organization with our science classes at the high school. We continue to work with Centenary University, also St. Elizabeth University, who are helping to implement our culture and climate initiatives. We have relationships with Rutgers University for our biomedical engineering classes and also to support our exercise physiology program. Rutgers continues to be a staple as we partner with the DOE for our early reading grant beginning next year. We've received various awards, 2 noteworthy awards, including Project Lead the Way, Distinguished High School, and Project Adam for our Heart Safe School designation. We've focused on the whole child, especially in response to COVID. We included a formal academic data review system to ensure that gaps weren't being left behind and students were being effectively and equitably serviced. We gathered concrete culture and climate data to drive specific decision-making. And our local data and recently embargoed state data is showing promising areas of growth as the year has continued. We've responded to a growing ELL population, and we've prepared to accommodate and connect students through unique scheduling approaches and district training. We continue to acknowledge diversity through our Heritage Awareness Calendar, grounded in Harvard's model. We continue to deliver and refine extended learning opportunities in the fall, spring, and in the summer. And we focus on foundational reading initiatives that help us increase and refine our alignment to the science of reading. In the world of safety and security, which is of the utmost importance, our behavioral threat assessment team continues to work and respond to initiatives ahead of established mandates in coordination with services like our counseling team and our ALIGN programs, and we lead the charge in training other districts in this work as well. We are beyond proud of these efforts, which just scratch the surface of the work that has been done in 1 year. We're always aware there's more work to be done, and we're excited to continue meeting the needs of our students in a collaborative manner. But for all this, I thank you. And lastly, happy Father's Day to the dads here and viewing at home. I hope you have a wonderful weekend. Thank you.
Thank you, Tara. Moving on to the HIB reports. Can I get a motion to move 11-1 and 11-2 will be added for the HIB appeal?
Motion.
Let me just read it's going to be 11.2, Mr. Morris?
Yes.
Okay. Resolved that the board affirms the findings of the HIB specialist in case number SHS 040320001 heard during this evening's executive session, and be it further resolved that the family shall be provided with a copy of a written decision explaining the basis for the vote, along with the family's right of appeal. Now you can motion.
Can I get a motion? Craig, second.
Second.
Thank you, Walter. Roll call.
Ms. Collier.
Yes to 11.1, no to 11.2.
Ms. Keeling.
Yes to 11.1, no to 11.2.
Mr. Knapp.
Yes to both items.
Ms. McMichael.
Yes to 11.1, no to 11.2.
Mr. Palashi.
Yes.
Ms. Pitzer.
Yes.
Mr. Morris.
Yes. Okay. Moving on to communications. I did receive communication today from the NJLA, the New Jersey Library Association. There's a lengthy letter they sent us. It's been passed around to everyone here at the table. If you'd like to peruse it, it'll be added to the record. Delegate liaison reports.
Ms. McMichael and I would like to report out from our last policy committee meeting. As you recall, the Board of Education tabled our first readings of policies and regulations 2530 and 9130 at our last meeting. Policy 2530 is entitled Resource Materials, and Policy 9130 is entitled Public Complaints and Grievances. Neither of these policies or regulations have been reviewed since 1999, and the majority of the policy committee believed that the review was long overdue. However, the board decided to table these policies at our last meeting because we believe valid concerns were raised by members of the community and stakeholders about some of our proposed edits. Since that time, we have met again as a committee with Ms. McMichael and conferred with our board attorney to further refine and improve our revisions to those documents. We did listen and hear from you. On tonight's agenda, we have brought those revised policies back to the board for another vote as first reading. Ms. McMichael and I wish to provide a high-level overview of our edits to those documents, so bear with me just so we can give some detail to this, as it's been a concern to our community. As to Policy and Regulation 2530, our goal was to expand the purpose of having a school library and to explain the objectives and standards for the selection of the resource materials that are contained in those libraries. It is important to mention, however, that we did not change the fact that the responsibility for the selection of instructional materials is delegated to our certified library media specialists. We also included in the appendix to the policy a copy of the Library Bill of Rights of the American Library Association, which emphasizes the important roles that libraries play in our society and the rights that users have of those libraries. Also included in the appendix is a fact sheet from the New Jersey Library Association, which explains the important differences and distinctions between public libraries and school libraries. To quote the NJLA directly, quote, "School library collections are highly curated to include almost exclusively materials published for the designated age range, reading level, and interest of the enrolled students, as well as materials at those levels which also support curricular and classroom activities. Whereas, quote, the focus of public library collection is on providing unhindered access to a wide range of materials for enjoyment and information." The regulation that accompanies the resource policy and the criteria for the selection, and updated the criteria for the selection of our resource materials. It also defines what is considered appropriate resource material for our libraries, depending in large part upon whether the library is an elementary, a middle, or a high school library. We felt it was important to make sure our resource materials are age appropriate. We emphasize that our resource materials should avoid sexualized content and defined, particularly at the elementary and middle school levels, and define sexualized content as the actual or implied depictions or descriptions of sexual acts or simulations of such acts. Last but not least, the committee codified the regulation that parents do hold an essential role in the education of their children and have the right to guide what their children read. Therefore, while all titles are available online via each school library website, the proposed would have that each library maintain a printed list of its current resource materials, in addition to what is slated for acquisition. Parents have a right to review any of the library's resource materials, including any books checked out by their children. And Ms. McMichael and I do appreciate the consideration in some email dialogue that we had with our media specialists that the proposal of utilizing the current library management system to allow parents to opt out circulation as a practice or a specific title or series for their child, which could be used through that system. And I'm going to turn it over to you, Ms. Michael, for 9130. Thank you.
Thank you, Lauren. In Policy and Regulation 9130, we made some modifications to the process for individuals filing complaints about staff members, as well as complaints about district programs, practices, excuse me, or operations. We did make more substantive changes to the process for individuals filing complaints about instructional resource materials. Just like the process that existed before, a complaint about a resource material will go to the superintendent, who will assign a committee to review it. The regulation defines that who will serve on the committee, which will include the principal of the school in which the work is used, the head of the department in which the work is used, a teacher in the subject area of the work, and a library staff member from a school other than the school where the resource material is located, as well as 2 board members, with preference given to the chair of the curriculum and chair of the policy committees. Educational professionals still compose the majority of the review committee, just as before. The regulation defines that the standards by which the challenged work will be judged are those contained in Policy Regulation 2530, as well as the standards set forth in Island Trees versus Pico, which is the key U.S. Supreme Court case addressing the standards for removing books from school libraries. Like it existed before, the regulation then requires the committee to make a recommendation to the full board, which can then act to remove the book or limit its access in some way. Any board decision can ultimately be appealed to the New Jersey Commissioner of Education. To summarize, we believe that our revisions to these policies and regulations make sense. Despite how some folks may try to spin this, we wish to be clear that this is not about banning books. This is certainly not our intent. Rather, our goal is to ensure that our students are exposed to a wide range of materials that suit their educational, social, and emotional needs, while at the same time recognizing that certain material may not be appropriate in a school setting. We also believe the school district transparency with the parents of minor children is paramount. Parents must have a say in their children's upbringing and what they are exposed to at school. Simply put, we are confident that our revisions properly balance the rights of our students with the rights of their parents, while at the same time respecting the important role that our very valued educators and our media specialists play in the process. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other delegate liaison? Okay. Moving on to public comment number 1. Public comments are invited on matters pertaining only to action items at this time. Please state the action item number as well as your name, municipality, and group affiliation. If appropriate, for the record, each participant will receive 3 minutes to speak. Once you've had your allotted 3 minutes to speak, you will not be permitted to speak again until public comment number 2. All statements should be directed to me as presiding officer. The board or the administration may or may not respond to any questions or comments after the conclusion of public participation.
Good evening.
I'll also give like a 1-minute warning as well, just so you know.
That's great. Thank you so much. My name is Brent Rivers. I live in Long Valley, New Jersey, and I'm speaking tonight on behalf of the Sparta Supervisors Association. On behalf of the Sparta Supervisors Association, I ask you not to pass the proposed changes to policies 2530, 9130, and regulations 2530 and 9130. These changes are drastic and provocative, 2 qualities which we know are obstacles to developing sustainable district practices. Amidst the urgency to pass these changes, which are even more extreme and inflammatory than last month's drafts, we must ask this question: how do these changes help students? As supervisors, we ask this question all the time, every day, usually more than once a day. Our professional time is spent as an intermediary between our teachers and the outside world. When curriculum decisions need to be made, we bring research from the field, our teachers bring their day-to-day classroom experience, and all of those perspectives answer to the data. Student data becomes a stand-in for the students, their strengths, their growth, but also their needs. From there, we can begin to apply our professional perspectives and develop a cohesive strategy to meet those needs. So when it comes to these policy changes, please, where is the data? Do we have any student data that suggests that over-access to books is creating a kind of measurable problem? How can these amendments be a solution if we don't even have an understanding of what that problem is? One problem that educators fully understand is the scarcity of time. In August, the state will approve new math standards for grades K through 12. They will also approve new ELA standards for grades K through 12. We have 1 year to implement those standards. 1 year to integrate those new standards into our curriculum documents, into our benchmark assessments, and our school cultures. It's a massive task, but we are professionals, and we have already started planning ways to squeeze every minute out of the next 14 months to meet those mandates. But the time it takes to resolve book challenges, which are even easier to initiate under these new policies, is really difficult to plan for. The last book challenge took over 70 hours of district employee time, which does not include the non-employee members of the committee. Under the new regulation, that book, a book which no student has ever been required to read, would be eligible to be challenged again on February 1st of this school year. Many of us fear that we will drown under these complaints. The demands of these changes are unreasonable and create undue obstacles for educators and students. Revisions which suggest the insidious fallacy that parents exist in opposition to our media centers, when we know that meaningful literacy instruction requires the coordinated efforts of as many adults as possible. Any policy that undermines that fundamental relationship is bad for literacy and is even worse for children. Thank you.
Good evening. As a parent, as a Sparta parent, as a Sparta educator. I'm sorry, Amy Del Coro, a Sparta resident and teacher, parent, and Sparta Library Board member. Recently, District and Regulation Policy 2530 has undergone revisions. Tonight is the first reading of those revisions. However, I'm using the word revisions lightly, as the policy regulation revisions largely reflect the policy of another school district, specifically the Buck School District in Pennsylvania. I am questioning, why are we attempting to adopt another school's policy? This is Sparta Township. I'm asking that when you revise a policy, can you please keep in mind the needs of the Sparta community? Currently, we have a policy that addresses how books and reference materials are selected. There is also a current policy in place for community members to question, challenge books, and reference materials. One only needs to go on the Sparta Schools website to find these policies and request forms. On that same website, community members can find links to the book collections in each of the school libraries. So why change the district policy 2530? Why add words like lewd, vulgar, profane, and naked, when all of these words are subject to interpretations? Why open this Pandora's box? In the past, teachers and librarians selected books and reference materials with their students' age and maturity in mind. Parents have always had the ability to question a selection and to opt their child out of a particular assignment. I'm asking that you allow this approach to education to continue. I'm asking that you update policies based on the needs of the Sparta community and not of the community in Bucks, Pennsylvania. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I am Angela DeLucia. I am the SEA president and the high school librarian. And I live in Sparta also. In response to the policy and regulation drafts that you have shared with us, respectfully, we ask again that you table the first reading of these until a few questions can be addressed. What is the objective of changing the policy with this language? How does it serve and benefit our students? And why are we rushing to make those changes? No other demographically similar districts have made sweeping language generalizations. Why are we? Sparta is a uniquely diverse community. Policy language should reflect our specific needs. Why has this first reading been taken from Central Bucks School District verbatim? Does the board realize that the Central Bucks School District is currently in litigation with the Pennsylvania ACLU and under investigation by the United States Department of Education? Is this something that we need to deal with right now? Why are we focusing on maximizing transparency with parents before meeting the needs of our students, as is students' constitutional rights to access information and intellectual freedom is hindered? And this is a slippery slope into a morality argument that we are not supposed to fight. Does the board realize that there is no legal definition of lewd, vulgar, and inappropriate? In order to be deemed obscene, a work must meet 3 criteria under the law. With this question comes more questions of subjectivity. What one parent may find inappropriate may be far different from another parent's opinion. And if by offensive, the board means mentions of LGBTQIA+ people and their families, people of color and the difficult and horrific parts of their history, or something else that doesn't coincide with their religious beliefs. As a public institution of education, we are bound by law These laws include diversity and inclusion, Amistad Act, the Holocaust Act, and the LGBTQIA+ mandates, and a separation of church and state. Again, we ask which resources are lewd, vulgar, or inappropriate. The language used in this policy is still extremely subjective and dangerous. It is evident by this revision that there is a serious lack of trust in our media specialist. Is there a reason for this? However, in an effort to partner with concerned parents, we proposed we utilize our current systems to allow parents to opt out of circulation as a practice or in specific titles for their child, both in the school library and in the classroom libraries. Thank you for your consideration.
Hi, my name is Elizabeth Sanchez. I live in Sparta, but I'm reading this on behalf of Andrew Lowry. I want to apologize for not being present myself to address the board with the following statement. I am currently at a retirement celebration for one of my colleagues. Please accept Mrs. Sanchez's reading on my behalf. In September of 1989, the New York Times published an article about how a mother and a group of parents in Boron, California persuaded the school board to ban The Catcher in the Rye from its high school reading list, adding to its status as a perennial #1 on the censorship hit list. The claim was that the portrayal of Holden Caulfield is not a good role model for teenagers. What the mother never realized, because she never read the entire book and didn't intend to, was that Holden is actually quite kind, and although he's having a tough time getting through school and will probably have a tough time getting through life, he may be as moral a character as has ever appeared in American fiction, end quote. As a lifelong resident of Sparta, a veteran English teacher with over 35 years' experience, a former 10-year member of the Public Library Board of Trustees, and a current language arts teacher at Sparta High School, I would like to point out to the Board of Education and the public in general what a great opportunity this group of parents had to capitalize on what we refer to as a teachable moment. The book, of course, has gone on to become a core novel in many schools across the country, and it still resides in our book room at the high school. The Boron Board's banning of the book had the usual effect. 15 people immediately signed up for the waiting list at the local library. When we worry about a book's content, isn't it best to look for guidance through knowledgeable people trained to understand and teach literature? Isn't it best to look to experts? Isn't it also a perfect opportunity to sit down with our own children and read it together so we can discuss its content and share our opinions, both good and bad, regarding why we do or do not like something contained within its binding? I believe that we live in an educated community with thoughtful people of varying opinions who have a right to help their children understand their belief systems and the ideas that foster those beliefs. Why then do we want to strip the community of those rights? Let's let our parents encourage these discussions with teachers, peers, and themselves, and not take away choice by forcing the will of a few upon the many. We can only understand literature and how it connects us to the rest of the world if we actually read it. Literature is a reflection of life, binding us to the past and helping us plan for the future. What Mrs. Swindler of Boron, California could have realized about Holden had she actually read Catcher is that she, quote, might have liked him. Please keep in mind what the great novelist James Baldwin once wrote. It was books that taught me that the things that tormented me most were the very things that connected me with all the people who were alive or who ever had lived. Thank you for the opportunity to share my thoughts with you and the community. Andrew Lowry, class of '78.
Don't worry, it's not homework.
And read the answers.
You can go.
Good. Ryan Dumpert, Sparta. Last time I was up here, I looked at everybody and I said, I really hope that you will tell your grandkids that you kept pornography out of the libraries and the schools. I received some negative feedback from, okay. I received some negative feedback from the audience, so I just want everybody to know that I was the one. I have a camera sitting in the corner. I am recording myself and the audience, and I am doing it so that I can show my children who are learning how to be brave and speak up. I want to show them how not to treat people who speak up with an opposite opinion of theirs. So that's mine in the corner. So anyway, back to my point. I say, no pornography in the schools, and you get a negative response. It doesn't make sense to me. If the topic of discussion was to the security of the schools, and I stood here and I said, keep murderers out of the schools, would there be a negative impact from the audience? Would the security guards stand up and say, how dare you insinuate we would ever let murderers in the schools? I don't think that would be the reaction. It doesn't make sense. I look at this very logically. A book was challenged according to a policy that was written in 1999. That policy was followed. Our policy reviewing board, which is all of you, are now updating the policy. That's it. Doesn't make sense why anybody would argue against this update. I understand language, fine, get it to a second read, great. This is as important to me as the harassment, intimidation, and bullying policy. And that policy, when that came down, did the teachers all stand up and say, how dare you insinuate that we would allow harassment, intimidation, and bullying in our classrooms? I don't think they did. So this policy protects my children from being exposed to inappropriate, age-related resources. That's what it's doing. So I want everybody to make sure that you understand that there really isn't any logical reason why anybody would want you to drop this policy or to not bring it to fruition, pass the first read to the second read, and vote it through. Thank you.
How's it going, guys? All right, so here's the disclaimer. I made a
Name.
nice shirt for today. Daniel O'Malley, Sparta, New Jersey. So for clarity, these pictures are from a different school district, one right up the road, okay? So this is an anatomy photo. For some people in the back, it's David. And a picture in the school district right up here. So it's not like we're trying to ban To Kill a Mockingbird. This is literally porno here. That's not a straw, okay? It's edited too. If you want to read it, feel free. There's 30 copies. Anybody who wants to grab it, go ahead. These photos are for a 14-plus book, okay? So that means it's high school-age kids, approved by the vendor, like Mr. Zitmer said. So they have it in high schools, okay? It's not supposed to be there. This is stuff that should be like maybe 18 or something, because I know I wasn't allowed to buy them until I was 18. So the media specialist, if she has nothing to hide, why fight this policy? It's literal porno. So if you want to look at it, it's right there. All right, edited though, so don't get too excited. Everybody keeps talking about children's rights and the teachers. What about parental rights? Parental rights. We're here. They're our children, okay? We have rights too, okay? Our governor in this state, if you have a problem, he's strong-arming our school district. So we have local government in our town that we elect people, and then the governor's getting involved. That's why this is a big deal, because the one lady kept saying, trust the professionals, this isn't such a big deal. Why is the governor getting involved? Why is he meddling in what we have? We have our election for our Board of Ed, and now he's trying to strong-arm us by taking away our funding. So that's why it's a big deal. Schools should be held at a little bit of a higher standard than just, porno sitting in the books, I think, maybe that's a great idea. I urge you guys to follow through with this, pass this 2530 and 9130, please, okay? Let's get it done.
Sasha Nelson, Sparta. So I'm just going to start by reading a quote by Thomas Jefferson that I came across while doing a non-school related project. He said, If the children are untaught, their ignorance and vices will in future life cost us much dearer in their consequences than it would have done in their correction by a good education. Jefferson was referring to censorship in this quote and the dangers and harms it will cause for future generations. I'm going to move to a Supreme Court case I stumbled upon while researching for my AP Government and Politics class. The Board of Ed versus PICO. For those who don't know, middle and high school students sued a school district's Board of Education for removing books from their school library. It was brought to the Supreme Court, and the ruling was as follows. The Supreme Court ruled in the students' favor on First Amendment grounds, holding that the right to read is implied by the First Amendment. The government, in this case, a public school, cannot restrict speech because it does not agree with the content of the speech. Right now, it is removing books due to sexualized content and profanity. But the bigger picture is the precedent it sets. Parent concerns have resulted in the removal of books and the altering of policies. If one parent's concern or one group of people's concern will result in a change that affects everyone's child and their learning opportunities, that is censorship. Just as it is a right of a parent to have their child not read a book, and nobody is saying that it isn't, but it is a school's constitutional right to follow through with the First Amendment of the Constitution, which supports one's right to receive information and ideas. Thank you.
Caitlin Gagnon, Sparta. I think you all and everyone here and everyone watching already knows fairly well how I feel. So instead of rambling about how I feel, I'd like to ask Dr. Beck, Ms. Rossi, and our student representative how you feel about policies 2530 and 9130 and the revisions to them as proposed. I think it's important to note that Dr. Beck and Ms. Rossi, you have been serving this district longer than the majority of board members here. Chad, you have been enrolled in this district, I'm sure, longer than the majority of board members here. So I'm curious to hear what you have to say tonight, and I kindly ask that you, even if you wait to the end to answer all questions, please don't skip mine. Thank you.
Hello. Dear Superintendent Beck, President Morris, and members.
Just your name and address.
I'm sorry,
Thank you.
Karina Gonzalez, Branchburg, New Jersey. And members of the Sparta Board of Education. My name is Karina Gonzalez. I am President-elect of the New Jersey Library Association, and I am here in that capacity and representing over 2,300 members. I have been a school librarian, a college librarian, and now serve as a public librarian. I urge you to support and uphold the role of your school librarians as educational specialists who serve the interests and needs of every student in the Sparta Township Public School District. Your school librarians are accomplished educators whose professional values, training, and experience prepare them to make careful decisions. Part of their job is to purchase titles on a broad range of topics that reflect the experiences and interests of all of your students. Learning occurs when a student has freedom to read books that address political, economic, religious, social, minority, and sexual issues. They become empathetic adults by preparing to interact with people who possess differing backgrounds, beliefs, and identities. Retaining your existing material selection policies, which give your trained library professionals the responsibility for developing collections and provides for individual choice by parents, assures that the Sparta Township Public School District offers excellent library services to its students without discrimination. Parents and students may rightfully voice their concerns and select different materials for themselves and their children. However, they should not be given the power to restrict others' right to access information, as the proposed policy revisions would allow. America has long fought against countries that censor their citizens and restrict access to books. As New Jersey residents, we know how important and even life-saving books can be for young people who are experiencing mental health issues, loss, trauma, or are members of marginalized groups. Moreover, any decision to remove or restrict titles because of some individual's objections to the ideas or views expressed in the books, thank you, may constitute unconstitutional censorship in violation of the First Amendment. Courts have long held that school boards may not remove books from school libraries when the substantial motivation for the removal is its board's disagreement with the ideas expressed in the book. More recently, the Office of Civil Rights in the United in the U.S. Department of Education has expressed its concern that removing books that include themes addressing race, racism, or the experiences of LGBTQIA+ persons is discriminatory activity that creates a hostile educational environment for students based on sex, race, color, or national origin under Title IX of the Education Amendments of 1972 and Title VII, of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. They are encouraging students to report such activity to the Office of Civil Rights for investigation. Librarians, administrators, and members of the Board of Education serve the entire community. They protect students' rights to read and learn from books they have chosen to read.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Phil Rizzo, Bernardsville. I am a former Sparta resident. We lived here from 2004 to 2015. We have many, many friends that are still living in town, and the amount of people in this meeting tonight is not representative of the opinion of the books that they're looking for protection from. It's interesting to hear advocates that are saying they're wanting to open the floodgates, saying, why are we stopping books from coming in when we don't even know what books we're talking about yet? That doesn't make any sense. That's not how you parent. That's not how you deal with children. You tell your children to stay out of the road. By that logic, it would be, well, play in the road because we don't see any cars right now. What's the harm? The harm is once the car comes and the kid is in the street, there's a tragedy. The harm of not passing an updated policy to make sure there are protections, guidelines, and a slowdown is for safety. Somebody said that there was a book that required 70 hours of commentary. That is fantastic. I love that there's 70 hours of commentary because while the adults are arguing, the children are learning. And they're able to learn reading, writing, and arithmetic while the adults in the room are fighting over a book. That's a good thing. The idea of protecting the children is a simple idea that every parent has. There was another comment that we are going to move a policy for the multitudes by a minority. Well, we don't live in a democracy. We live in a representative government, a constitutional republic where you have been elected, well, by the way, with great numbers, congratulations, to make decisions for this board. You ran on certain issues, certain topics, certain policy ideas, and you overwhelmingly took the positions that you hold today. I encourage you to continue what you're doing, to be a representative for those that have voted for you. I highly recommend you go through with the first reading, adjustments as needed to the second reading, and then you pass this for the protection of the children. I travel the state listening to these issues all over the place. Let me encourage you with something. Do not Roxbury your Sparta.
Hi, my name is Kelly Kiff. I'm the media specialist at Sparta Middle School, and I also live in Sparta. First, I would like to thank the Policy Committee for removing the federal codes for pornography from the draft of Policy 2530. Secondly, I want to acknowledge the fact that the policy is old. It has not been revised since 1999, so I understand the possible rationale for reviewing it. I do not understand, however, why we are looking to adopt a policy that is unique from any other resource material policy in this state. As we have indicated, a large portion of the proposed policy is copy and pasted from a school district in Pennsylvania that is currently facing 65 book challenges. One of our roles as media specialists is to teach students to evaluate their sources. Where did the information come from? Is it reliable? Is it the best resource to use in order to support your claim or purpose? So now I must ask, what is our purpose? If it is to satisfy the beliefs or fears of a small number of people, what about the rest of the community? I want to be very clear about something. We respect the concerns of parents, and we have the ability to satisfy those concerns via destiny without establishing policy that excludes others. I would like to share a portion of a card that I received from a parent several weeks ago. She is describing her daughter's experience at the middle school, which she attended several years ago. Lunch was the hardest part of her day, and many days she went to the library to find solace. Some days she would read, some days she would daydream, but she was always welcome. The library was so much more to her than books and computers. It was a refuge. We set a tone in our libraries. You set a tone in your policies. Will our tones match? Will they continue to support a student who finds refuge in the library? Please table this again and evaluate your source before moving forward. Thank you.
How are you, everybody? My name is Ashley Resendez, and it's more so just some clarification that I'm looking for, because I did personally reach out to Ms. DeLucia and Dr. Beck for an idea of what is the process when it is to remove a book from the library. I know there is a process to put one in, but what are the steps taken to remove it? Can the librarian just go, pick it off the shelf, remove it from the database? I was specifically asking about a book that showed up in the database and then wasn't there a few days later. So I specifically just wanted to know, how does that work? And then I was told that it was an error, and I wanted to know, has this error occurred to any other books, or did it just happen to this one? Is there a process that you occasionally do? And I was told that it's on an as-needed basis. And then eventually, it was just more so that a post was on social media, looked it up, and noticed that it wasn't on the shelf. When did this happen? Where did this book go? And I thank you, Ms. Michael, that mentioned that there is a process. What is that process? How do we keep track of what is on our shelves and what's not? How do we know what's actually there and suitable to be read by all ages in the schools and what isn't? And I didn't really get that answer via my back and forths. So if we could touch upon that at the end whenever you guys have a chance, that'd be great. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Juliet Sanchez. I'm a resident of Sparta, and I am a current junior at Sparta High School. So what I'd like to emphasize is when we do have these public comments and like when the board is listening to, the responses to their policies, is to listen to the experts who are the ones who'd be implementing these policies and how they say it would work or not work, their views and their professional opinions on how this would affect children. And so listening to those perspectives and point of views of people who have gone to college, who practice, our media specialists, who understand how this policy would work in reality, I think is paramount to, when we're thinking about going forward with the policy. I'd also like to emphasize listening to student voices who come here on a Thursday night to speak their minds. And I would argue that they are the most major stakeholders in public education, as it is mine and my fellow students' education that we are talking about here, and our access to resources and what that looks like. So when we are looking at, how things play out in these policies, I would encourage you to listen to these student voices who many of you campaigned as putting first. So I would put them first. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Kathy Kane. I teach at the middle school, and I'm reading this on behalf of my daughter, Sarah Pisano, who teaches at the high school. Good evening. I'd like to speak on policy 25. Thank you. I'm currently one of the 3 biomedical science teachers at Sparta High School. As many of you know, last month's Board of Education meeting, Dr. Beck acknowledged the biomedical science program at the Sparta High School as being recognized as a distinguished program. This is an honor that only has been awarded to 200 schools across the nation. This recognition would not be possible without the resources that we as educators have been able to utilize to best prepare the students for a future in the biomedical sciences. One of the things that allows our students to be so successful as they apply for these pre-professional track programs is that we make an effort to not only prepare them for highly competitive entrance exams for programs such as pre-med, PA, nursing, et cetera, but also our ability to expose them to live surgeries and work in cadaver labs at supporting universities. The proposed policy changes limiting our resources will restrict our abilities in supporting these students tremendously. I respectfully request that the Board of Education consider the impact that this will have, specifically on our students who are trying to make a career out of serving others. Thank you.
Say something.
Good evening. My name is Andrew Bayless. I'm from Dingman's Ferry. I'm a teacher at Sparta High School. I'm also the vice president of the Local Educators Association. I'm going to read a statement from the New Jersey Association of School Librarians. I thank you for your time. School library media specialists organize and maintain a current, diverse, and inclusive collection of reading and information materials in multiple genres and formats that support the development, culture, social, and linguistic needs of all learners, as well as the curriculum of their school. School library media specialists should consult professional review journals to inform their purchasing. Many of these review journals also offer professional development regarding book selection via virtual and in-person events. An effective school library includes diverse and inclusive resources, programs, and services that meet the needs of all learners, represents various points of view on current and historical issues, and provides support across a wide range of interests, areas with opportunities for learners to recognize themselves. Collections must be regularly audited and inventoried to ensure that outdated or damaged materials are removed. A school library collection is ever evolving and must be regularly weeded to ensure that it is current and reflects changes and updates to curriculum and publishing. School library media specialists have been trained to examine the age and condition of a title, its circulation statistics, and they have the ability to consult professional resources such as the Wilson Core Collection Guides to determine if, despite its age, a title should be kept in a collection. School library media specialists should be included in curriculum development discussions of the grades and/or departments in their school buildings so that they can make informed purchasing decisions and should be included in the budget process. Place orders from approved vendors to maximize discounts and process the materials when received and make them available for use quickly. Certified school library media specialists have been trained in collection development and are the most qualified staff member to make purchasing decisions for the school's library. In addition to professional journals, they consult with teachers, students to inform purchasing decisions. This is a year-round endeavor and a critical component of a school library media specialist job. Furthermore, the New Jersey Administrative Code requirements for school library media specialist certification list the development and coordination of a school library media programs and resources as one of the functions of the job. Eligibility for the certification requires that candidates hold a master's degree from a program that meets the requirements listed in the NJ Administrative Code, including children's and young adult literature, as well as the development and implementation of policies and procedures for effective and efficient acquisition, cataloging, processing, circulation, and maintaining equipment and resources to ensure equitable access. And I would just like to add that there are no pornographers in our school libraries, and you do have the option right now to opt your kids out of any material
time.
that
Thank
you
you.
don't
Thank
want them
you.
to see. Thank you.
Christopher Rowe, Sparta, New Jersey.
Did you sign in?
Yes, I did.
You did already? Okay.
I signed in out in the hallway.
No, you have to sign right there. You're speaking right now. Thank you. Please, can the audience please keep it down? Thank you.
Christopher Rowe, Sparta, New Jersey. I respect all the people on this side of the room.
Sir, you got
Sir,
to
yeah, dress up.
comments up
Thank
here.
you.
However, they're all dragging in their professional careers to something very simple. Keep the pornography away from our children. We do not, I do not,
Sir,
as a
excuse
parent,
me. You talk up here, not.
I do not, as a parent of a child in Alpine Elementary School, want my son to be subjected to adult or pornographic content. It's extremely simple. It's like sending your kid to a strip club, for God's sakes. There's no reason.
Hold on one second. Hold on. Can we, as soon as someone says something that people in the audience does not like, you guys start chattering. Okay? Stop acting like children.
Back and forth, please.
Stop acting like children, act like adults, and pay the respect to the people at the microphone. They do it to you, okay?
Sir.
Stop.
Hang on a second. We can't have a back and forth. Everybody has a right to speak. We're all about listening to other people's viewpoints. So please, whether you like it or you don't, be respectful of the speaker and don't call out. Please, continue.
All I'm saying is I'm sick and tired of these people dragging their entire jobs into one topic. The topic here, period. Keep our children away from pornographic and adult content, period. End of story. I don't want to send my kid to a strip club, or I'm going to send my kid to some stupid drag story, book story, drag times, and all that nonsense. These people here, all they want to do is continue to bring their left-leaning liberal bullshit.
Sir,
okay?
Sir,
this nonsense.
Thank you. You're cut off. Thanks.
Joe Zweig, Hampton Township. I'm an outsider here. Plain and simple.
Can you repeat your name again? Sorry.
Joe Zweig, Hampton Township. I'm an outsider here. To me, I'm a parent. The most basic part of parenting is having rights to protect our children. Plain and simple. The policy that I have heard about that they're proposing isn't removing books right at the moment. It's giving parents a chance to be able to review what's there and decide, hey, they maybe want to appeal this type of book. And then it goes to a process as far as voting, and that's where the professionals will do their job of voting whether this particular book should or should not be in that library. They're not saying, let's remove all these questionable books. They're saying, let's give the parents a chance to review the books in there, and then if they don't like that, then they can appeal it, and then it goes to the voting process. It's plain and simple. It's protecting our kids from stuff that we don't want our kids to be subject to. They don't need to know how to perform oral sex or Kama Sutra or stuff like that. I'm not saying that it's in your library, but it's a way for the parents to be able to protect their kids from books like that possibly coming into the library. It's that simple. You guys are having a policy where parents have a choice. That's it. And that's all I have to say, that you guys should pass this policy just to have parents being protected their kids.
Hi, my name is Frank Sanchez. I live in 120.
You guys can sign in to save time while he's talking. Sorry.
Sorry. My name is Frank Sanchez. I live in 122 Summit Road in Sparta. I just want to make sure you understand that this vote for this policy is not about just books. It's about how our students feel. It's about identity. So it's not about pornography. Many of you guys are my age. We grew up with, God, It's Me, Margaret, right? We read about that. That wasn't sexualizing anyone. I mean, thank God Judy Blume didn't use they, them pronouns. Or in this case, you would ban it. You'd be worried about sexualizing when it's not. This is a board who just a few weeks ago silenced a student who wanted to talk about a book. And now we want to silence schools. We had in the middle school, certain students were supposed to wear pride if they wanted to. We had some of our parents weaponizing their kids to wear black to show others that they're not the same. We don't support you. No, we are against you. That's what you're voting for. I wish you a lot of luck, because we're going to register and record this vote, and whether it's one of bigotry or one of support and love. And that's what people are asking here. It's just support, to let our kids be who they are and not judge them for who they are. Good luck tonight.
My name is Gina Muth. I am a resident of Sparta. I am a Sparta High School alumni myself. I have 2 daughters who graduated from the Sparta school systems. My son is currently a student at Sparta High School. I am also a certified librarian at Sparta Public Library, but I'm speaking to you as a parent. Excuse me. I love this town. I've been volunteering in Sparta since my oldest daughter was in kindergarten, which is over 17 years ago, and I'm still going strong. And I'm asking you as a parent and as a librarian to leave our libraries alone. The rush to pass these policy changes is not necessary. You need to leave it open for more discussion. All 5 of our district librarians have achieved higher education in the field of library sciences and have held their positions long since most of you volunteered to be in your position. They know what they're doing, and to my knowledge, up until very recently, there were no issues until very recently. These women are good at their jobs and should be trusted to continue to do so. They all have been trained in the policies and procedures of maintaining a library collection that serve our students, all of the students of Sparta. And their collections fall within the guidance of the curriculum rules that are set forth by the Department of Education. There is no pornography in our schools. You board members are not here to run the district, but rather to make sure that it is being well run. You're supposed to support the superintendent and the administration in creating safe and healthy learning environments that will provide an opportunity for every child to achieve their curriculum standards, as well at all grade levels, as well as be prepared for further education or workplace and develop into trustworthy, respectful, responsible, fair, and caring adults and citizens. We all know how reading is the base for respect. We all know how. Where am I? I lost my place. Sorry. Thank you. We all know that reading is the basis in all subject areas. In order for students to develop into trustworthy, respectful, and responsible, fair, and caring citizens, they need to be able to read, not just nonfiction, but also fiction and fantasy and all genres. Reading teaches empathy. It helps children learn about the world around them, beyond the borders of Sparta. You guys were elected and we are required to make decisions in terms of the educational welfare of all of our children, regardless of their ability, race, creed, sex, or social standing. And you can't let a small group of parents influence your decisions regardless of how loudly they yell. It's up to parents to decide if a book is appropriate for their child. But just because they might not like a certain title, they shouldn't have the right to tell me my kid can't read it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Julie Knapp, Sparta. I'm asking you to reflect on the suggested policy changes and ask yourself, will these changes help the Sparta School District in meeting its very first core value on the website, which states, cultivating an educational environment that fosters the social and emotional well-being of all students, enabling every child to feel supported and valued? Or will you be furthering your own religious, political, and personal agendas? I ask you to consider the rights of all parents and all children when making your decisions, not just your own, especially when your children are not even the age level some of these changes affect. I ask you to trust your teachers, media specialists, and administrators, especially when you are not experts in the field. My children, your children, our children have a right to feel that they, their friends and classmates, and their families are represented in the classroom and in the library. They have a right to learn and read about a world beyond its walls. But is it really about the books? Or is it an assault against some so-called woke agenda? I am standing here, we are standing here because we are asking you not to tell kids that certain identities are disgusting. We do not want our kids, your kids, any kids, feeling that they have to eat with the school nurse because their entire table wore black on Pride Day. Please do not tell me you are doing this for parents' rights. We have always had rights. I have had children in every school grade in this system. I'm able to look up resources. I'm able to contact the teachers. The catalog for the library has been on the website for years. Never has a media specialist or a teacher or an administrator made me feel that I don't have rights. Until now.
1 minute.
Thank you.
Ms. Kiff, you already spoke.
I wanted,
You already spoke. You can speak again, public session number 2.
if it's a...
Thank you.
Okay.
Is there anybody else?
Kate Salerna, Sparta. Regarding harassment, intimidation, and bullying that one community member brought up, a couple other community members have already addressed this, but when it comes to this same community member talking about the things that are most important to the school district and the things that are hurting the school district more than anything else right now, I think everyone sitting at this table is aware that harassment, intimidation, and bullying is top priority. And if you're not already addressing it, then you clearly don't have a Facebook, a social media account, or were not present at school when apparently several students showed up in all black in direct opposition of this voluntary Pride event that happened today. So as much as I know that this certain community member is concerned for his own adult feelings, I think...
What action item are you talking about?
Should I read the Facebook post?
No, what action item on the agenda are you speaking of?
Oh, the change to the policy of the books banning,
Okay,
literally everything else that everybody, I'm responding directly to like a lot of
let's get to
things
the
that have already been
agenda
said,
item.
so yeah, so it's obviously part of the agenda item.
Well, can you get to the actual topic?
Okay, harassment, intimidation, and bullying. I think book banning will directly impact that in a negative way, first and foremost. There's that. The overwhelming majority and the status quo are the people that supposedly elected some members of this board. As someone who went through Sparta School District and has lived here my whole life, I'm very aware of what type of roots are deeply embedded here. So when somebody from outside of the community comes over here to say how overwhelmingly this board was elected, I think there are many factors that played into that y'all are aware of, and that's something that should be noted. I think it's also important to note that 3 men have come up to speak tonight to claim that their own anatomy is pornography. I feel like that is what is a problem. I also find it ironically hilarious that one man that is allegedly so offended by what he calls pornography took it upon himself to wear a shirt portraying the very thing he's clutching his own pearls about. Just wanted to make sure I pointed that out.
Kate, I'm going to stop you for a second. You have not mentioned one thing on the agenda thus far, and you're just
So
criticizing.
when the shirt reveal, that was part of the agenda item?
He spoke on the agenda item. You're
The shirt was the agenda
speaking
item.
about them, so you can.
Can you tell me how the shirt related to the agenda item?
He just had a shirt on. I'm not getting into a debate.
So when he talked about the
Kate,
shirt, was that about the agenda
At this
item?
time, you're done at the mic. You can come up at public session number 2 if you like. You're not here for an agenda item. You can come up at public session number 2.
You
Thank
bet I will, sir.
I'm Edward Habather. I live in Franklin. I just have a question for all of you is, why, as adults and parents, why would you allow anybody who is under 18 to read a book that has pornography in it? And it's like there's no educational value in that. I understand that, books are very important, and I'm all for books, but books with pornographic material on it that has no value in it. I'm done.
Josh Akins, Lafayette, New Jersey. I'm also a school board member, but I'm not here in that capacity right now. My attorney would yell at me if I didn't say that. What I want to say to you guys tonight, updating policies is one of your responsibilities. This is what you're doing. The policy was outdated from 1999. That's all you're doing is updating policies. We update policies all the time as board members without any sort of chirp from the crowd or community whatsoever. Most of the time, it goes by without anyone even noticing. So what you're doing tonight in your first reading is exactly what you're supposed to be doing. I commend you for doing that. Best of luck.
Okay, if there's nobody else, I need a motion to close. Oh.
Hi, Kate Madison, Sparta. I have 3 kids in the school system, 3 different buildings. I just wanted to start off by saying I'm trying to communicate with you guys, human being to human being, for whatever that's worth. I don't know how many, if any, former board members are in this audience tonight. Maybe there are, but I don't know of any. I was on the board for 2 years. I was part of a board of ed who
What agenda item are you talking about, Kate?
the book policy.
Okay, I'm just asking. You didn't state it as I asked. So
Well, no one else was stating it either.
everyone.
No one did, but it's okay. Please don't hold up my 3 minutes with this.
No, you're not. You're good.
I was part of the Board of Education who hired Mark Zittimer. I was part of the Board of Education who supported Kurt Morris and Kim Bragg wholeheartedly at that time. And I was part of the Board of Education who harassed and ran out Mike Rossi wholeheartedly at that time. And when I was sitting in that seat, I fully believed in what I was doing was the right thing to do. And what happened to me was that I started to meet and get to know the educators of Sparta on such a deeper level and admire them for their work. And I turned around, but it was too late, unfortunately. And I am part of the reason that this process tonight was able to come to this point. So what I'm saying tonight, again, human being to human being, is listen to these educators. They are amazing. They are top-notch. They love our children. There's no indoctrinating going on. We are so lucky to have a school district this strong and this committed, and I bow down to these people at this point for the job that they do with our children on a daily basis.
1 minute.
But what I'm saying is, my mind changed after I was there, and I frankly could not be a part of a Board of Education that was terrorizing staff members and fulfilling a personal agenda that was destroying the school district. And Mr. Zinnemer, you're there to help it happen. And I know that because I helped put you there. So I think you're going to pass this, and I think there's going to be horrendous ramifications for all of us as a school district and as a township. But I just wanted to share my experience tonight and where I stand now and why. Thank you.
Hi, Jenny Derricks, Tappa Sparta. I just have a quick question. I'll sign in when I'm done. I don't want to hold you up. 15-6, just changing topics. I'm just wondering if these renewals are staff members that were released in a prior meeting and are now being rehired, or this is just the opportunity to notify that they're being hired, or if they're being hired into a different position. Just asking for clarification why they're on this agenda for renewals. Thank you.
Okay, if there's nobody else, I'll take a motion to close.
Motion.
Thanks, Fred. Second?
Second.
Walter, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Yeah. Does anybody know?
First, I'll respond to the easy one, to Jenny's last question. Broadly speaking, those were all individuals that were already renewed for next year. Maybe their position has now been solidified, maybe their salary has now been solidified, but that's what you're seeing in there. Yep, no problem. And then going over to Ms. Gagnon's question, which is a great question. The truth of the matter is, Mrs. Rossi and I have spoken, continue to speak about this topic a lot, obviously. And I'm sure Mrs. Rossi will weigh in, of course, with her specific feelings. But obviously, this is a heavy topic. No matter what side you're on, this is a heavy topic. No matter what side you're on, people are passionate about this topic, and it's an important topic. There's no doubt about that. And the truth of the matter is, I see the perspective of both sides. Obviously, I 100% trust our professionals and trust the processes that are in place and the professional backgrounds and the decision-making processes of our professionals. But I also see where the other side is coming from when we're talking about parents being involved in the process. And I think there is a balance in there somewhere. I'm not sure exactly where that is at this time. And because I don't know where that is at this time, I'm not sure anybody knows exactly where that is at this time. Where I stand on the matter is the policy is old. It does deserve a second look. Whether it's a heavy revision or not, that's up for conversation. The process already played out once. We saw this policy in process, and the policy, regardless of the outcome, the process worked, and the policy as it stands worked. But some updating, acknowledging that some updating could take place. So I say all that to say, I see both sides, and perhaps there's more work to be done and more collaboration to be done, whether that means that it gets tabled tonight. I'm not saying it should be tabled tonight, or whether that means there's work to be done between the first and second reading. I think there's more work to be done, there's more collaboration to be done, and I think there is an answer to satisfy both sides as far as granting parental rights to an extent and trusting our professionals as well, and I think more work needs to be done.
Thanks, Dr. Beck. I do want to elaborate on that, and I do agree that this is a controversial issue that is complex at best. I would go as far as saying there's not two views on this, there's not two sides, there's a multitude. And it's really difficult to make sure that when you're creating policy, that you're really being driven by sound practice, and not just our multiple opinions, because we have so many of those. I do have logical reasons for concern on this policy, and it's not about the decision-making or the opinions surrounding how books are regulated or managed. My concerns are that this process was rushed. It's taking place during a time when we're at the end of the school year, which is like the most chaotic time in a school calendar. It was hard to really take the time to review the policy, to be sure that we were looking at all the implications. This policy is substantial. If you review other district policy, this is pages and pages. It's a report. It's not a policy. And so to try to make sense of that and to try to pull apart all of the different points are challenging and take time. I do have concern about why language was used from Bucks County, PA, who, when we look at Pennsylvania, I mean, really the point there is that it's ranked nationally at the bottom half of the state. It's ranked nationally at the bottom half of states across the country. So I don't understand the arbitrary use of Bucks County, PA, when New Jersey continues to perform at the top of our national education system. And when I'm writing policy or looking at making educational decisions, I look at our peer groups, I look at our high-performing role models, places like Chatham, Summit, Glen Ridge, West Windsor, Livingston, and I've reviewed their policies. They look a lot different than this one. I think that when you look at theory and application, those are two very different things. So a district can write policy, but we have to be really clear on what the intended consequences are. And I think there are substantial unintended consequences with this policy right now. Lastly, I just want to say that, once again, I'm not judging the underlying belief system or the concern that has been brought to our attention. I'm not against reviewing and revising policy. I appreciate and am willing to continue to work with the board. I've never dismissed their concerns or the concerns of the community, but I do think this takes time, and I do want to make sure that we are being really thorough and intentional about what we're trying to achieve here. I think lastly, what I want to add is that, while this may be legal, I guess, I don't think that that's like the bar we're striving for, is to just pass policy that's legal. I think we need to pass policy that's high quality and that achieves the goals of our school district. And I sincerely hope, and I do understand the sentiments here, but I'll share my own, that I sincerely hope that it's not our goal to appease voters as we're up here making these really difficult decisions. That's not what education is. Education is not a political engine. It's a place where we serve students through partnerships with parents, and those partnerships and that dedication and practice is grounded in science, research, and best practices in the field. And I sincerely hope we can continue to do a better job at that. I just wanted to address the concern regarding the, I'm so sorry, I'm not remembering the name, it was one of our respected teachers speaking on behalf of her daughter who teaches at the high school level. Nowhere in this policy are medical journals, scientific things, anatomy included in any capacity. It states that starting at the middle school, I can read it for you, that those things are not withstanding, as well as classical works of art and literature. And visual nudity actually is not even a standard at the high school. Can I continue? Great. Visual nudity is completely acceptable at the high school in this policy. I would just like to also address Mr. Sanchez when he said that they, them pronouns in books would be tossed aside due to this board. I will speak for myself, and most likely, I don't think anyone else would disagree with me, that nowhere in this policy, in this district, and in this town is that acceptable. We are not changing policy to affect marginalized communities such as the LGBTQ community or other religious groups, etc. This is simply a policy revision to protect children's innocence. And Ms. Rossi, with all due respect, you and I did spend quite some time on the phone during a Google Meet with Ms. Collier. And I asked for your specific feedback regarding the policy, but I didn't. You were invited and encouraged to provide suggestions and edits all along. As these policies were developed, they were created in a Google Doc that was shared with the entirety of the board, Dr. Beck, our attorney, and Ms. Rossi. To date, some people never even opened the docs that were created. So to say that it was rushed when there has been countless hours of research put into this by the policymaking board since January, when we heard the audience say pornography and related topics were not appropriate in that policy. We heard you. We listened. We went back. Thank you. I just want to give one example of something that I was talking about, because I do think some of the unintended consequences are substantial. And I do appreciate being engaged and collaborating in that process. I think that having just a few hours before our committee meeting to review multiple pages was not enough time to feel adequate. So one example I would give you is that, just to show you kind of like the extreme impact this can have, is that when we use language like prohibiting sexual content from, let's just go with high school libraries, a key characteristic of the young adult genre of writing is that it may include sexuality, but not eroticism. So to make determinations, you're really looking at an entire genre of writing and titles that could impact a review and an implementation of a policy like this. And again, I just don't understand, which I haven't had the chance to speak to you about, why we're choosing a district in PA to model our policies after. Ms. Rossi, I do agree with you on that. Children are obviously sexual beings, especially at the high school. Sexualized content as defined is the implied depictions or descriptions of sexual acts or simulations of such acts. Nowhere in this policy and regulation is sexuality and the concepts of sexuality under attack. Sorry. It's actually allowed. In the middle school libraries, it states sexual content, sexualized content, unless there is a legitimate pedagogical reason for such content in the context of the resource material. So therefore, our trusted professionals whom we value to use their expertise may absolutely include things that support our curriculum and the state standards and our diverse population, which is extremely important to everyone in this town.
Okay, moving on.
Oh, Kurt, if I can weigh in.
Oh, okay, I didn't know,
Actually,
sorry.
Did you want to weigh in first, Chad? Was there anything like that?
No, he can talk during good of the order.
Well, I would like to respond to the comment that was made.
Okay. I forgot you asked. I'm sorry.
I do want to hold a lot of my comments to the good of the order, but considering that we are voting on a policy tonight potentially, and it's a policy on books in classrooms, I think it's important to keep in mind that we're entering the end of June and the month of July, which leads to August and then September. I think we have potentially ample time to look back at the policy, and we don't need to rush or make any votes, because there is a clear dismay among the board and among the audience of how they feel about the policy. So I feel like moving forward and addressing a vote to this policy seems very inappropriate, considering the active conversation between board members where there's clear disconnects about the policy and how it's written and why it should be written and how it was taken care of. And I think additionally, considering that there were many ayes that weren't even on the policy being addressed, how can you sit there and vote on it?
Chad, I always appreciate your feedback, and again, I find you to be courageous and precocious and a very, very intelligent senior. I just wanted to point out that all eyes were allowed to be on this document, and as I said, some professionals chose not to open them for 14 days. Thank you.
If I could just speak to a few questions that Ms. Lucia and the media specialist did send our way, and we do appreciate that they were sent in advance. I think it's been addressed why the objective of the change of, we are a policy-making body, and it has been, a policy in place 20 plus years ago, and things have changed since that time. And I did want to reiterate that within the curricular materials for criteria, it was actually expanded really, I think, to really to talk about our district goals, that it would be to support and enrich the curriculum of our students' personal interests in learning. That's something that was added. Contributing to the objectives of the instructional program was included. There was nothing that was taken out of what the curricular materials should include. If anything, that was also expanded. The language simply is about limiting or prioritizing non-sexualized content over what is sexualized content. And sexualized content, as Ms. McMichael said, can certainly exist for our older students, and we recognize that human beings are sexual human beings, and they should have access to that. It's just about making sure that we are being respectful of what can be curated within a school library. And when we speak to high-performing districts, such as Livingston was mentioned, the addition of those appendices that we included are actually something that Livingston just within the past few years added to their libraries to show the important distinctions between a highly curated media selections within the school library versus maybe the extensive and unhindered collections in a public library. As far as serving and benefiting our students, our aim was still to ensure that our students are exposed to that point, a wide range of materials that suit their educational, social, and emotional needs, while recognizing that certain material just may not be appropriate in a school setting. Regarding the, that no one else has looked at this, we would have to survey really every public school in the country, but this is something that, at least for me personally, when the last book challenge came up, something that I spoke to all of my colleagues about was not having review of this policy for the past 20 years was a hindrance. It started to show its age. There's resources that just simply exist that weren't here when we were in high school or starting out our careers. And the goal, my goal, has been to limit book challenges. I don't want to waste our and that's something I know that we've talked about. I don't want to tie up our educational professionals, who are still the overwhelming majority of the committee who will be reviewing a book challenge. I don't want you tied up away from teaching our students and leading our students and making educational recommendations. And I feel that by clarifying the policy and knowing that we are definitely willing to go back and look at within the regs, and I know Dr. Beck, you and I spoke even last Friday about if there's something within the regs that will largely change the everyday or hinder people's work, or it's something that we can't get out of the current library management system, then we need to know those things, because we don't run the schools. You run the schools, and we simply do want to work with you to ensure that they are well run while taking into account all stakeholders. And I appreciate the view that you're seeing there. In regards to Sparta is a uniquely diverse community, and we feel student policy language should reflect our specific needs. We absolutely agree. And while there was certain portions of the Central Bucks policy that we liked and incorporated, that was not all verbatim. We believe that there was no point reinventing the wheel as we have with the Strauss-Esme policies. That's why everybody has the same policies around the state largely. But we are policy-making bodies and can revise them. And we did make sure it was permitted under fair use doctrine. To that said, we can certainly go back and look at any language along with our stakeholders between readings. And then finally, regarding the Central Bucks School District being in litigation, we were aware, and while we prefer not to become embroiled in litigation, we are confident that our policy revisions will withstand legal challenge. And as Ms. Rossi said, it's not just about what's legal, though. So what's going on in that district is very different in ours in terms of what they what they're actually being litigated against. And some of that is creating a hostile environment, and that's not what this is aiming to do. And I don't know if you want to add anything to that, Mark, but this is really about recognizing the essential role that parents do have in the education of their children and the right to guide what they have their children to read, and that is certainly a shared process with our educators. And as far as a lack of serious trust in the media specialists, it's really not that at all. It's just a cursory review of these policies and regulations demonstrates that we do value the expertise of our media specialists, and we recognize their integral part in this process. But we have seen neighboring districts, what they have become embroiled with by not addressing policy, and that's not what we want Sparta to become. And that's part of this. Finally, I'm sorry, I missed the one about lewd and vulgar. Our position is that the terms lewd and vulgar speak for themselves. That's why we chose not to define them in policy, nor do we use the term obscene. And ultimately, the people deciding what books go in the library still will be the media specialists and will be guided by policy, these challenges that it would hopefully help clarify what would even need to be challenged, and I would hope it would reduce it. But I'm open to continued discussion between meetings. I hope that helps clarify a few questions.
Thank you, Lauren.
I just wanted to say something as well. I'm not sure about this argument that the process is moving too fast. I don't know of other policies that have been revised recently or in the past 20 years, if there is an average as to how long it takes for a policy to be revised. This process began in January. We brought it to the table last month. We took in the public's opinions, the media specialist opinions, and we went back to the drawing board. We are now back with the sound policy for a first reading. This is how the process works. Nothing is being rushed. This board is a policy-making body. It is our job to review, revise, add, etc. policy. These policies haven't been looked at in 20 years. We are doing what the objective of the board is, creating and revising and reviewing policies. It's also not about the LGBTQ+ community. This is about age-appropriate materials and resources that do not contain sexualized content in our school libraries. If any books contain any age-inappropriate content, they would be subject to the policy, no matter of sex, race, religion, or any other subjects. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Okay, if there's nobody else, I'll take a motion to close for the third time. Motion. Second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Moving on to personnel and policy. Need a motion to move 15.1 to 15.42.
Motion.
Second. Thank you. Ann? Discussion, discussion. Ann?
Ms. Collier?
Yes.
Ms. Keeling?
Yes.
Mr. Knapp?
Yes.
Ms. McMichael?
Yes.
Mr. Paleshi?
Sorry, yes to everything but 15.35. I'm going to vote no on that. And really my reasoning, it's specific to 2530 and 9130. These are definitely old policies, and I don't disagree that these need to be updated. If you look at every other similar school district in the area, they have updated these policies. Some of them a couple times since 1999. Two of my concerns are, one is with the increase or the change in the number of board members on review committees. And I just want to make sure that that check and balance that the policy is there to uphold is, continues to be there, right? The policy is there to
to make sure that everybody has a say along the way, and the board is, one of the final steps. And I really appreciate all the time that the Personnel and Policy Committee have spent working on this and spent with our administration. There are a lot of changes in this policy, and a lot of changes that could potentially have wider reaching effects. And I just want to make sure that, and I understand that this goes to a second reading, right? So there's a potential month in between. But I want to make sure that our administration has enough time to fully, kind of vet what those far-reaching repercussions could be, right? And I'm not saying I know what they are, because I don't. But I just want to make sure that we have all those bases covered. So thank you.
Thanks, Craig.
Ms. Pitzer?
Yes.
And Mr. Morris?
Yes. Need a motion to move Finance 17.1 to 17.21.
Motion.
Sorry, I skipped one. Sorry, back up a step. Yeah, 16, curriculum instruction. Motion 16.1 to 16.11.
Motion.
Thanks, Leanne. Second?
Second.
Thank you. Discussion? Ann?
Ms. Collier?
Yes.
Ms. Keeling?
Yes.
Mr. Knapp?
Yes.
Ms. McMichael?
Yes.
Mr. Pelesci?
Yes.
Ms. Pitzer?
Yes.
Mr. Morris?
Yes. Finance, motion for 17.1 to 17.21.
Motion.
Thank you. Second.
Second.
Walter, discussion? Ann?
Ms. Collier?
Yes.
Ms. Keeling?
Yes.
Mr. Knapp?
Yes.
Ms. McMichael?
Yes.
Mr. Pelesci?
Yes.
Ms. Pitzer?
Yes.
Mr. Morris?
Yes. Operations, motion for 18.1 to 18.6.
Motion.
Thank you, Christina. Second.
Second.
Thanks, Craig. Discussion? Ann?
Ms. Collier?
Yes.
Ms. Keeling?
Yes.
Mr. Knapp?
Yes.
Ms. McMichael?
Yes.
Mr. Pelesci?
Yes.
Ms. Pitzer?
Yes.
Mr. Morris?
Yes. Moving on to old business. Does anybody have old business?
I do have a question. Last meeting, we voted to get rid of the vendor that would provide live stream for the graduation. At the last meeting, we discussed if we could use, I think you said Huddle to do that. I was just wondering if there's any update on that.
Yeah, it was actually my Friday update that I already drafted for tomorrow. So yes. Huddle, yes, we can use Huddle. So the graduations, plural, will be live streamed. And the video will be there and the audio will be there, and we're using our existing, what's in the stadium, Huddle for the sporting events. We're using those cameras, and our great IT department figured out how to tap the audio into those cameras. So we're to go.
Is there a cost?
No cost.
Anyone else for old business? New business?
I just, I know we've asked a few times, and Dr. Beck, when it relates to the waivers, have we gotten a response back from the state on that yet? Like, where do we stand with the waivers?
Yeah, I believe the waivers that are continuing to be asked are regarding the square footage over here in Mohawk Avenue, and there are no waivers for square footage. We met with the county BA earlier this week.
To know, where were they referencing that from? Because I looked at the state doc, it didn't say anything about that.
His guidance was coming from the New Jersey Department of Education.
So, did Gail get involved in this, or is this just with Neil?
It was just with Neil. The meeting was with Neil.
Do you think it might be something that we could ramp up to Gail to take a look at?
I mean,
this
I can
point?
check with Gail. I know she would, as I would, rely heavily on her business administrator, but yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other new business? Okay, moving on to public comment number 2. The board uses second public comment period to invite comments on all matters pertaining to the school district. Please state your name, municipality, affiliation. if appropriate. For the record, each participant will receive 3 minutes to speak. Once you have your allotted 3 minutes, you won't be permitted to speak again. All statements made should be directed to me as a presiding officer. All board administration may or may not respond to any questions, comments after the conclusion of public participation.
Good evening. Dana Galino, 26 Valley View Trail. Originally, I was planning to speak on a proposal to build a new school. I was going to suggest how we could redirect the Alpine kids for a few years, build a new state-of-the-art school, and bring back some of our out-of-district placements and the tax money that we currently send to other districts for their accommodations. I was going to make you a deal. You propose the referendum, and I'll rally a bunch of folks, friends, supporters, parents, everyone, and I'll convince them to overlook our differences and work together for our common interest. I was going to vow to hit the payment and knock on every door to ensure that the referendum was passed. But then a bunch of parents sent their kids into SMS today with a hateful message. One meant to hurt members of a community. They could have just ignored the request, but instead they used their children to show hate and intolerance to another group of children. They tried to hurt our babies, Kurt, and they did. I don't want to look past that. I don't want to work with anyone who took part in that today. And that includes this board, who repeatedly puts on a metaphorical black outfit every time you attempt to make a change to a book, resource, or policy that affects our LGBTQ community. You could choose to just let them be, but instead you proudly don that black outfit to ensure our LGBTQ children know that you hate them. You, a group of parents, hate them, a group of children. We've got kids breathing in mold in packed buildings. I mean, these are your kids too. You have kids in special education that could use the advances that a state-of-the-art school could bring. You own real estate. You don't need me to tell you that what a new school does to our home values, or what more equipment and technology can do for our scores, how this school could help our reputation. But you are wasting your time on the board rewriting a book policy. Who cares? Every month
1 minute.
you try to undermine art, and our super asks for a parcel of land. 6 months now, and it's still the same thing. And now you've passed a policy that fixes nothing. We still have mold issues, overcrowding, angry parents, unhappy teachers, $15,000 in the bank, and a bigoted middle school. Congrats. Thank you. Great.
I'm reading this letter on behalf of a parent. My name is...
State your name, who you're reading it for. State your name and who you're reading it for.
My name is Kelly Kiff, and I'm reading for Becca Fernandez.
Thank you.
Of Sparta. My name is Becca Fernandez, and our family has 2 children enrolled in our Sparta School District. I'm writing to you as both a parent and a past volunteer in the media centers of our schools. During my children's time in our school system, I've had the rather unique opportunity to serve as a volunteer in the media center of Alpine, Mohawk, Helen Morgan, and Sparta Middle School. I began my volunteer work at Alpine about a decade ago when our eldest child started first grade in the school district. My daughter absolutely loved books back then. She still does, and the volunteer position at Alpine seemed like a good fit. Back then, I visited the school library each week, greeting my daughter's classmates, helping them check in and out books they selected, putting books back on the shelves, rescuing the torn or lost book that happened from time to time, tidying up the library, really whatever small tasks were needed to keep the library chugging along. It was an incredible opportunity to get to know my child's peers, her school environment, and the caring adults who surrounded her. I'm so grateful I connected with Miss Gallagher, now Mrs. Doremus, way back then. I repeated this weekly volunteer experience every year as I followed my daughter from Alpine to Mohawk to Helen Morgan and then Sparta Middle School. I was fortunate enough to repeat the cycle once again when our second daughter started school. Year after year, I'd show up at a library, volunteering my time to help out with whatever small tasks might make a busy librarian's life easier, so she could spend more time connecting with students and inspiring a love of reading, which I can tell you with certainty our school librarians excel at. Collectively, I've probably spent at least 1,000 hours of time volunteering in our school media centers over the last 10 years or so. I throw this 1,000 hours out there not to attempt to impress, but to say that I've spent at least 1,000 hours getting to know many of our school librarians, our media specialists, and I've seen firsthand their level of professionalism, their knowledge of their material and content, their ability to help our children connect with books, navigate technology, and more. I've witnessed their genuine interest in helping our kids learn and grow. Please understand that libraries are more than just a place that houses books. They're a place that some kids go to for comfort, for connection.
1 minute.
I know this to be true because I've been inside our school libraries countless times. If you haven't spent any time in our libraries, I urge you to take a moment. It really is a wonder and gives me hope and faith that all is not lost to technology and phones for our kids. Thanks to our school libraries and the books inside and professionals at the ready, our kids do still read, our kids are still inspired, our kids do get to experience new, different, and diverse ideas, and our kids can find the quiet and sense of belonging that can only be found in a library. This happens through books, materials, and care provided by our media specialists. Our media specialists are passionate, educated professionals who know their stuff, and I trust them with their decision-making abilities and skills. I do not believe there to be some nefarious agenda here. I've seen our librarians at work doing what they do best. I've seen Mrs. Doremus, adored by her youngest students, plant the seed that leads to a lifelong love of reading. I've seen Mrs. Bernardo expertly inspire and challenge her students, keeping them smiling and engaged. I've seen Mrs. Kiff help that awkward 7th grader find a place of belonging, a place of calm and comfort in the library.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Ryan Dumpert, Sparta. I just wanted to say really fast, thank you to the board. And I wanted to say thank you to Dr. Beck. You mentioned last time that you wanted to open a line of communication, and you have kept that word with me. And I really do appreciate the responses that you have given me to all my questions. So thank you. And lastly, I wanted to acknowledge Chad. I am recording, and I do plan to teach my children how to be brave, and I really do believe that you are an excellent speaker. You do speak up well, and I may not agree with your opinion. It makes no difference at all. You deserve to be acknowledged on that aspect alone because you do speak well. That's it. Thank you.
Kate Salerno, Sparta. I was interrupted and asked to stay on topic earlier when I was bringing up what I consider to be one of the most pressing issues in the district right now, which is bullying and the hostile environment that many students find themselves in currently. I am super horrified to find out from Dana and to notice that Mr. Morris is wearing an auspiciously all-black outfit this evening at this board meeting, which either means you are woefully unaware of what happened today, or you're complicit in it, or worse, but here we are. So, yeah, and jeans, but I mean, it's fine. I get it. I also have the rainbow, the egregious rainbow thing on my wrist if you want. Anyway, I give due acknowledgement to those on the board prepared to take a pause and look deeper into the review of this district policy because they see both sides. Myself and many others see with our own eyes what is happening right now, which is the harassment and intimidation of students within the district to the point that there is discussion among local forums with parents planning on taking their children out of the district and opting for homeschooling because of their lived Sparta public school experience. So while I appreciate the both sides argument, I again feel that this board is woefully either implicit or actively ignoring the bullying issue happening within Sparta School District from the elementary school level up through high school. I already did the overwhelming majority thing. The lewd and vulgar do not, quote unquote, speak for themselves. I just wanted to bring that up. It does not speak for themselves. And that was presented very clearly today by the person who wore a shirt to display what, in his opinion, was lewd and vulgar, right? So that is a discussion. That is something that we need to talk about because he wore that shirt to elicit a response. And he and two other men, by their own assertion, said that the male anatomy is pornography. So I think that in and of itself is a discussion that needs to be had. And to Chad's point, This has not been a discussion that's been going on long enough. Just visually, from your perspective, you can see that you have at least a 50-50 split in the way that the parents view what's going on here. So to push through a vote right now without taking the time that you need to deal with this issue that is pervasive in the entire state is ridiculous. Not to mention, the students of this district have been stepping up for over a year, since the Ghost Boys incident, since there was a teacher that was ousted from the school district for her allyship to the LGBTQ community. They have shown up in droves. They have spoken publicly on the mic. It is on record. And you are on record, therefore, having ignored them since 2021. So, and I'm saying this to the people of the community that are asking why people don't show up to these, why kids don't show up to these meetings.
Thank you.
That's the reason why, because you ignore them and because of how you display yourself.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Kate, before you sit down, can you just sign in, please? No, for a second session? No, thank you. Thanks for your cooperation, as always.
Caitlin Gagnon, Sparta again. So just a few things. I feel like I always say this, but I had no intentions of speaking tonight. It's the second time. So number one, for the parents who are talking about parental rights and touting them, I think it's really important that before you record minors, you make sure you have the consent of parents before you go ahead and do that. Minors. These handouts that are happening right over here.
Dana, please let her speak.
Please,
Dana.
Can we
Thank
scold?
you.
This Dana, not that one, it's okay. The handouts that are happening, really important to note. This book doesn't exist in our libraries, in our Sparta libraries, so it's important to note that. I had kind of hoped that maybe the sad irony of plagiarizing from the Bucks County was a sad mistake. But I really appreciate Ms. Collier admitting that, in fact, you guys have done your homework and looked into why specifically they're facing another world of litigation, which, by the way, does encompass their book banning. So knowing that you're trying to make an example out of Sparta is concerning. This isn't an accident. And again, one of the first things we learn in school is plagiarism is bad. So copying, pasting a policy that apparently took you that long to copy and paste, it's very concerning. Lastly, I want to thank Dr. Beck for answering my question. I don't envy your position for, I don't know, I feel like I've said this to you for 3 years. Still don't envy your position. Still looking forward to collaborating in any way we can to make sure that we're addressing the actual needs and concerns of parents and students alike. We need to figure out the school situation, obviously, and I know you're working hard on that. I hope the board doesn't continue to stifle your efforts to collaborate with parents in doing so. Ms. Rossi, thank you for your honesty. I think it was no surprise, or it's no secret rather, that your renewal wasn't guaranteed.
1 minute.
There was enough rumor surrounding that entire process. I certainly don't envy, again, the mark on your back, I'm sure, for speaking up and speaking honestly, but our media specialists and teachers have been walking around with those marks on their backs for a long time now. So the fact that you're joining them in your bravery, I commend you and I thank you, and I hope that you can advocate for them as much as possible as you move forward. Lastly, Chad, as always, I look forward to your comments as well. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Cheryl Gully. I'm a Sparta resident. Good evening, fellow residents, Sparta residents and parents. I'd like to speak in support of the members of the board tonight. While the topics being discussed are extremely important, I feel there's something else that needs to be discussed of equal importance. The frequent personal attacks to specific board members should be off limits, and frankly, the indecent display of character is laughable, but more importantly, needs to stop. Any disapproval of material or topics should be handled in a professional and respectful manner. If we're so concerned about teaching our children valuable lessons, manners, subjects of importance, or simply how to be a decent human being, we may want to have a more composed display when speaking to our fellow town members. We all have a choice in every situation. The choice to not cause drama and discord should be a valued choice while residing in our community. Why don't we, at the very least, even if we don't agree on a certain topic, try to agree to teach our children how to show composure, compassion, and respect? I'm a longtime Sparta resident and grew up here and now raising children of my own. I'm ashamed to hear of all of the continued personal attacks and ashamed to hear of such rebellion against community standards and traditional values. There was a phrase we used to say back when I schooled here: it takes a little more to be a Spartan. Seems lately to sound more like it takes a little less to be a Spartan. Let's give some thought to how we want our children to view us and what morals we're trying to instill. For their eyes are like glue and their ears like sponges. If you want people to respect and consider your opposing thoughts and opinions, it might be all the wiser to stop attempting to cause destruction and drama in your fruitless wake. It has not produced a crop, and there will never be a harvest. In fact, it appears dark and ill-spirited, doesn't look right, doesn't smell right, and you know what they say about that. So instead, why don't we consciously decide to stay in our lane, focus on our families, respectfully fight for what we value and feel is right, stop taunting and approaching those we don't agree with, and attempt to give a little bit more to be a true Spartan. Thank you for understanding and time. Have a good night. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Kate Madison, Sparta. Thank you to you. Thank you to you. Thank you, Kurt. Sorry.
You're welcome.
Not you. Thank you. Thank you for this year. You were magnificent every time you were here, and you have a great future. But you're taking up my time, and thank you, Mr. Pelesci, for your explanation. I have a statement to read. At the last board meeting, our president, Kurt Morris, used his public office through the board's president's report to publicly shame and petition for financial reimbursement from citizens simply exercising their constitutional rights. When asked for further clarification of this statement via email, Mr. Morris responded in writing, again asking for reimbursement to the district. While I find his comments petty, offensive, and recklessly hypocritical, my greater concern is the chilling effect his behavior will have on an individual's ability to petition the government for redress of grievances. This right is enshrined in the First Amendment. By placing a penalty either monetarily through threatening reimbursement or publicly through an official statement intended to shame individual citizens of Sparta Township, Mr. Morris is creating barriers that abridge the free exercise of speech. His comments cultivate an environment where residents may feel they can't communicate with leadership and authority figures for fear of retaliation. As the presiding agent of this governing body, creating an environment that seeks to abridge our rights through threats or intimidation of any kind is unacceptable. His behavior and public statements were in fact described by the School Ethics Commission of the State of New Jersey as imprudent and ill-advised. And he continued to show this behavior last week, which is unethical. I politely ask that Mr. Morris publicly apologize for his behavior and request he reconsiders any similar future statements in this public forum. Thank you.
Anybody else? Any comments?
Yeah, I'll have one in a minute.
You can go next. Just real quick, I know the lighting's dim in here, but this is a blue shirt, not black. Just comments before I close it. Yeah. With regards to the videoing, prior approval was allowed for that before the meeting took place, so that's okay.
It's also allowed by our policy.
And as per policy. And to comment to Ms. Matson's comment, no, I will not apologize, and I did not threaten anyone. It was a simply ask. So, and if I was found guilty, I would own it, but then again, I was not guilty, just to reiterate. So thank you.
Thank you, Kurt. I would just like to go on record to address what seems to be now the third comment that's been made towards at least myself or the board. So Ms. Galino and Ms. Salerna, once again, I categorically denounce the claim that this board has or had any part in or shows for any shows of support for shows of homophobic or transphobic displays, specifically today, what I'm hearing at Sparta Middle School. It's disgusting if that's what happens. There is HIB in place. There are processes in place. Encourage parents to go ahead and use the proper avenues, but to come up here and to make these attacks to your volunteers and to make the assumption is egregious and it carries great implications. To make these reckless statements about our identities and to presume our own identities and family composition is highly inappropriate, presumptuous, and frankly, it's very misplaced.
Maybe that's why bullying is happening.
You're the one bullying.
Can everyone please
Ma'am,
stop?
This is not a
Please,
back and
thank
forth.
you.
The public participation section is closed, please.
I would like to speak on something that a member of the public brought up. I recall maybe a year or two ago, a former board member read a statement at a board meeting about how she felt her life was being threatened by another individual and how she was fed up by members of our community saying nasty and negative things to her in public, sometimes in the presence of her children. Current board members have been victims of physical assault while holding their children's hand at school at pickup by members of our community. Current board members have been victims of verbal and online harassment and threats by members of our community, literally have been screamed at in public. Current board members have been victims of accusations that are bold-faced lies. These accusations have even been recorded in completely falsified documents, which is considered a crime. Enough is enough. People are always going to have a difference of opinion. What is severely lacking is that we are adults that can have simple respect for each other. We can disagree, we can debate, but we can do so respectfully. Thank you.
We closed second public comment? Yeah, we closed. Did we? Yeah. Okay, moving on.
I just had.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I just had two comments. The first, this is the second meeting over the past couple of months where randomly it's been brought up that our kids are breathing in mold. I don't know what you're talking about. If you feel that our kids are breathing in mold, if you have some sort of air quality concern, please reach out to me. We do random air quality tests annually. And when we do receive any, which we don't hardly ever receive any, air quality concerns, we address them immediately by doing air quality tests in those areas. So this is the second time it's been brought up. I don't know what it's being brought up about, so please reach out to me on the side and let me know what that means. And then just to reiterate, reaching out to me, Mr. Dumpert, thank you for reaching out to me and having a conversation on the side, and other members of the community have done so since also. And to Mr. Dumpert's point, I think you would find that I do respond and we do have a communication which is much more productive than any communication we would have during a board meeting. So regardless of what side you're on, regardless of what your opinion is about anything, if you have concerns going on in the district, reach out to me on the side. I will email you back. I will invite you in for a meeting. We will discuss it because, once again, the board meeting is not the venue for that, and I do appreciate everybody reaching out. So, thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
Chad, you want to kick off?
I would love to kick off. I have a lot of things to say, so bear with me. And I would like to thank everyone who's been praising me, and I say, like, if you want to be like me, then you got to go to Sparta High School and get the same teachers that I had. But unfortunately, you can't anymore, because 4 of the prime educators who shaped me, Kate Brennan, Saskia Brown, Scott Kircher, and Laura Sofin, no longer remain in Sparta High School. They were so, I'm literally shaking when I say Kate Brennan's name, because it's hard to think about her because of how unbelievably fundamental and how, as a person, she completely changed my life. She is 100% solely the reason I'm here today. She taught me to care about real things, and it's so limited to the scope that she did for so many students. And to think that, now keep in mind, I don't know the board drama, I don't know what happened in the past years, and I don't know who was sitting when, but to think that there was a previous board that was removing or forcing or not renewing tenures or providing the position where they can be attacked by the public. It's many educators are leaving, and these four unbelievably promoted diversity in our schools, and there are not replacements for them. And unfortunately, when I talk to new administrators, they are scared. They are absolutely scared to speak up, to present a strong classroom, to speak up when their staff members are not being treated fairly by the board, or if they have someone that they want to stand for and fight for and speak at the mic, they will not, because they are afraid. I know firsthand as a student, as a senior, that many new educators are afraid in our school district. I think it's hard to hear all the double standards that are taking place when at the last meeting there were many participants who spoke more than once. There was one really well-spoken lady who spoke maybe 3 times, and at this meeting we couldn't let another person speak twice. And I understand that if that's the rule, then that's the rule, but you should follow it consistently every time, and it shouldn't switch back and forth based on the topic at hand. The second thing is you asked for what agenda items are you referring to? I know that when I've spoken on the mic referring to action items, and I've known that sitting here, I've heard people read right into essays that they've written. They never have been asked to direct. It has happened sometimes, but it's not all the time that they state the agenda item. So once again, I ask, can we not have double standards, and can we please have every single participant state the action item they're referring to, or no one says it at all? Because there's no point if you're going to yell at some people for not doing it and then praising others for doing it. It doesn't make a lot of sense. Additionally, in regards to the anti-pride protest at the Sparta Middle School, did any of you know that there was an anti-pride protest at the Sparta High School last year? Has anybody heard about that? Because I was there, and I was one of the primary students who spoke up against the students who were protesting today because, well, that's enough said. There was an anti-protest against the students. There was many students who were trying to say, wear these colors, wear this color, support the military, support the nurses, don't support pride. And when people say, yes, but there are HIBs and you can file an HIB, what does an HIB do to several students who choose to wear the clothing they want? The technicalities cannot get that student in trouble because it's the atmosphere of the school. And it's the atmosphere that's being created, and that may not have always been like this, but in my experience, since the 9th grade, it's only gotten worse, especially as the loss of our educators. Additionally, I have some more questions about the policy, 15, the drama policy at this meeting. When we were receiving clarification, the words lewd and vulgar were used for the policy purposefully instead of the word obscenity. But to my knowledge, the word obscenity has the clear legal definition that should be used in policy, whereas lewd and vulgar do not, so they may remain subjective when this policy passes. So I have to question the logic there, and I don't know if my understanding is right, but I think that should be looked into. Additionally, an audience member mentioned that you guys are doing the right thing by passing these policies. Most people wouldn't even notice, and I think that's an extremely alarming statement to make. I think it's an absolutely amazing thing that people are noticing. Everyone should read every policy that is passed. You should not be sitting by unaware of what's happening because they're not explaining it. They're not sitting here saying, this is exactly what's happening in 15.3 and 17 point whatever, and all these policies. Everyone's just sitting back and blindly voting, and I think finally in maybe 2019 or 2020 is when we realize that this cannot continue. And I don't understand why there are members being shamed for their participation when it should only be encouraged in our democracy that we live in. And someone asked me, how do you feel about the new policy? My question is, why are we wasting our policy why are we wasting so much time on this policy? Since my first board meeting, we discussed getting rid of the broadcasting. And then we talked about books. And then we never stopped talking about books. What about the nurse who presented at the last meeting who's talking about how one nurse is going to deal with 1,400 students in 1 month and how your children are going to be crying when their 8th grade DC trip is canceled because they don't have the nurses to bring on the trip? The options and the activities that your students have in Sparta High School used to have so many great things. It's all coming to an end. I don't know if you can see that, but the focus that we have right now and the months coming up, it's only leading to the next school year where we're going to be down nurses. And I don't know what's going to happen to your children, and I'm glad that I apologize. I'm glad that I'm out of here, that I don't have to experience that because I genuinely feel bad. And many parents on both sides say, I have young children in the district. Well, then stop focusing on the library. How many of your children are actually in the library? And I don't mean to diss the librarians because we love the library and it has been a fundamental place for me. But I don't read books. And as a high schooler, I spend up to 4 periods a day in the library. And I can tell you that a handful, I can probably count the students that check out books. So I don't understand why we're focused on what a 9th grader can and can't read when many of these books have existed for over a decade. And when you ask parents to find specific books that are in the Sparta public libraries that it is super detrimental and that we need a new policy for, there's nothing to be found. And I do understand the sentiments that a new policy needs to be updated, but I don't understand why it needs to happen right now on the June board meeting when we're going to be in summer for the next 3 months and there is more time and there is discord and it does not need to be established this meeting or the next meeting. Additionally, there's so many problems that are going on. The nurses, Alpine School, the amount of administrators that we're losing, the fact that we still don't really have a fix for our building, do we? Do we really have a confirmed fix for the upcoming school year in September and the school year to follow, yet alone the time that it's going to take once we find a location, once everything gets in place? It's going to take years. It's not going to happen in 3 months. We're not going to get a school during the summer. Not to mention we're talking about waivers, and he says we can't get waivers. So what does that mean? Is it legal? Is it legal to have the over amount of students in the building based on the square footage? Is this okay? Are you okay as parents with this? And you're choosing to focus on book policy and librarians. And it really does demonstrate the mistrust in the educators when there really hasn't been a big scenario to demonstrate that we should mistrust our educators. I understand that things might happen at other schools, and it is kind of hard to see one bad seed paint the whole picture. I think that was very evident in the Black Lives Matter movement when many police officers were getting painted a horrible picture, even though it might be those select few officers that might be participating to the problem and people are scapegoating on it. I think both issues are arguable and are exactly the same, but some would agree and some would disagree. As board members, are you not embarrassed? What have you gotten done? Can you please tell me the meaningful change that you've passed since I've been here? Because all I've been hearing are the same redundant statements and the same arguing back and forth, and I'm seeing nothing met in the middle. I do hear great sentiments. I do hear people from both sides when we talk about Alpine, and I hear people saying, I'm going to add them on Facebook, and I like what we're talking about, and there's so much potential for things to happen, and nothing is happening. As far as my eyes, absolutely nothing is happening. Nothing. And you're okay with that. Because I know that if I was on the board right now and I walk back and I tell my kids, hey, what did you do on your board of vacation? I didn't save anyone from porn. I didn't pass this policy. I didn't do anything. I didn't help any students. My changes didn't meaningfully impact anyone. You know what would meaningfully impact students? If you get funding to get more nurses so kids can keep having trips. Because they care about that more than they care about a book, and that's going to impact their school experience a lot more than a book. Do you know how much it helps to get students outside of Sparta? And when you go to Washington, D.C., and you finally see more than maybe 2 black people on the street because we're 90% white, how much that changes on the perspective? When I go to these Key Club board meetings, I hold a state position, and there's maybe 1 of 6 white people in a room of 32 people. Our town is not the norm, but we try to paint it like it is the norm and maintain standards like everything that we experience here is the exact same way that it experience in the outside world and in other places that your children are going to experience when they leave Sparta for school and they are not prepared. Do you understand the sentiments that your children are saying when we are hosting and demonstrating our marches outside of school against gun violence? And I hear students, my peers, making jokes about school shootings and it's hard to explain, but the sentiments and the lack of understanding and the lack of culture is unbelievably scary, and I'm unbelievably afraid for anyone who has young children in the district because from what I'm seeing, it's only going to get hard to get a broader perspective here, and I'm extremely afraid for everyone. Okay, am I under a time limit? No, you just start. All right, thank you. We have other things to do. I know, and you're going into closed session. This is the very last part, and then all the public meets. Thank you, I appreciate it. And in regard to Ms. Rossi and specifically about the regard of the language in Pennsylvania, was there ever an explanation given as to why we were using the language in Pennsylvania? Because I understand that there was the talk of, oh, well, our policy might not fall into the same lawsuits as their policies, but as I think Ms. Rossi said, why are we not modeling our policy based on other New Jersey districts, based on other models that she demonstrated that she knows about and that hasn't been previously taken from? I don't understand why we're kind of changing things now, and there's no real public answer as to why we're taking verbatim from a Pennsylvania school that's in the below 50 percentile. Thank you.
Is there anybody else?
Chad, just to confirm, we don't blindly vote for policy. There's a lot of work that goes on during the month, and this is just a little snippet of what happens, and it is actually posted on an agenda. I don't know if you do have access to board docs, or is that? I get the agenda before it comes out. Okay, all right. I'm happy to walk you through it and point to all the policies for you, and I'd love to talk about it, because I think you brought up a really good point with the lewd and the vulgar and the obscene. I'd love to hear more feedback on that. So I'm happy to show you how to use those and print them out. Thanks.
I'd also like to speak to the nurse situation because I'm under the impression that we have hired an agency to cover our holes. The nurses, we talked about that in finance.
No, who told you that?
I thought we discussed that in finance, that we were
An agency?
Yes.
Yeah.
We approved it.
Yeah,
We
Matt.
approved it.
Can we please quiet down, please?
We approved
Thank you.
it. Yes.
We approved an agency for substitute nurses?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
Yes, that's been approved
Okay, so
before.
we have plans to cover the nursing holes. We hired an agency, which is very common practice among nurses. We have a plan in place to resolve field trips and things like that.
Can you please not call out?
Please, it's not audience time. It's not audience time. Nobody wants to hear what you have to say right now. It's not your time. Thank you. Sir, you can sit down. Thank you.
If you continue
So
to yell
yes,
out.
Ms. Keeling, I didn't know what point you were trying to make. I get the point you were trying to make. Yes, there's substitute, which we hire every year because there's not enough substitute nurses out there. And I am currently working on trying to see how much breakage we have in our new hires and breakage we have when the actual numbers of the budget come in, because that's how budgets work, to see if we can bring back at least a part-time nurse.
This is not public participation.
Send him an email.
This is not
Send him
public
an email.
participation. That section closed. Thank you.
Dr. Beck, I'm glad that you brought that up because I did want to address that to your concern, Chad, is that, we talked about a budget oversight committee and that sort of thing. And what I have seen, in terms of what we have accomplished as a board since we've come on, it is hard because what you hear and what things are discussed in public comment are not always all the work that is discussed. And not for a moment has the nurse situation or Alpine overcrowding not been an issue. It's been something that we talk about with Dr. Beck on a regular basis, and even with, Mr. Knapp asking about the waivers and Ms. Keeling asking about the waivers. That's really because our administrators went through a really big process of looking through all these different scenarios of what we could do to help address, and ultimately, it's hard. We supported in December a vote for a public a study to see if land that we had from the town that could be just basically easily traded to reduce the referendum could be used. And we were all so deeply disappointed, along with Dr. Beck and our administration, that we couldn't use that. And we're continuing to try to think creatively as to how we can continue to serve our students and our teachers with the spaces we have and make that future school happen. So it's still there, and I appreciate how much every time we are meeting now, I'm hearing, hey, this is where we have to hold this budget line to still get good, very qualified people, but also find breakage to not only meet the needs of nurses, but also the needs that we continually have to potentially bring in back more students that are out of district, and also to ensure a safe and healthy learning environment. So for the good of other than that, thank you for your collaboration.
I just wanted to reiterate that we have been heavily involved in attempting to find a solution for the overcrowding at Alpine School. It's been a #1 priority for the majority of this board, especially me. 6 of us have been in office for 6 months, and it's something that we have brought up monthly in committee meetings, that we brought up here at the table, that we've discussed through emails. We are trying to find a solution. We can't magically make land appear where we can build a new school. We can't magically make a building appear where we can house the students while we rebuild the current school buildings. We're doing our best, and it is a high priority item. Thank you.
There's nobody else. Okay, at this point, we're going to convene into closed session. In closed session, it's attorney-client privilege and personnel. No action will be taken after that.
Need a motion.
Can we get a motion?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
It's freaking hot. Yeah. They turn the air off because that thing is like